The title of the book we're covering today, well, it sounds like a manual you'd find in the restricted section of a library.
It definitely has that feel.
It's called How to Commit a Postcolonial Murder. And honestly, when you first see that title on the cover, you might think it's satire.
Or maybe a dark comedy.
Yeah, a dark comedy. Or, I don't know, maybe even a confession.
And in many ways, it's all of those things at once. But if I had to, put it in a box, I'd say it's primarily a survival guide.
A survival guide. That's an interesting take.
It really is. It's a handbook on how to survive when your history, your geography, and your own family all seem to conspire to just erase you.
Right. And the setting for this particular survival guide isn't what you typically expect for a story about, quote, post-colonial identity.
Not at all.
We aren't walking the streets of London or navigating the crowds in Mumbai. We're on the high plains. We're in Marley, Wyoming. And the year is 1986.
Which is such a critical year for this specific location. I mean, you can't tell the story in 1995 or 2005. It has to be 1986.
Exactly. If I ask you to picture 1986, you're probably thinking of, what, Madonna on the radio?
Oh, yeah. The Cosby Show on Thursday nights.
The Cosby Show, maybe some neon fashion or acid-washed denim. But in Marley, Wyoming, 1986 means one thing and one thing only. The bust. The oil bust.
It's a fascinating, brutal backdrop. So the book we're going to dive into is by Nina McConigley, and it tells the story of two mixed-race sisters, Georgie and Agatha Krishna.
They call themselves halfies.
They do halfies. And the hook of this story isn't a whodunit. We know exactly who does it right from the start.
No mystery there.
None. These two teenage girls decide to kill their uncle using antifreeze.
It's startling right out of the gate. So the mission for our deep dive today isn't to solve a crime.
Right.
We're not playing detective here.
Not at all.
Our mission is to understand the concept of extraction. And I'm using that word very deliberately. This is a story about the extraction industry, oil, gas, uranium. But it's also about extracting a predator from your home just to survive.
And that distinction is absolutely key. We need to look at how this story deconstructs the idea of, say, white crime versus brown crime, and this concept of splitting.
Splitting?
Yeah, you see it everywhere in this text. It's geological in the landscape, it's political in history, and it's deeply personal in the girls' own minds.
Okay, so let's start with the ground beneath their feet. Because in this book, the geology isn't just scenery, it's almost like a character.
It really is. It dictates the mood, the economy, the entire emotional state of everyone living there.
So Marley, Wyoming, what kind of place is it?
Well, it's described as a town founded on extraction, a place that exists for one reason, to take things out of the earth.
So if the earth stops giving.
The town stops existing. It's that simple.
Right.
But before it was an oil town, it was Fort Marley. It was a base built on Arapaho land. So the very foundation of the town is displacement.
Our narrator, Georgie, she points this out really early on. She talks about how the government just chopped up the land, gave the Arapaho just a finger of it, and took the rest.
It sets this precedent, doesn't it? That the land, and by extension the people on it, are things to be divided up and used.
It's this idea that you can just draw a line on a map and say, okay, this is mine and that is yours, and completely ignore the reality of the people who are actually living there.
And Georgie's obsessed with this idea of things splitting in two, which, when you think about it, makes perfect sense given her background.
How so?
Well, she's the daughter of a geologist, right? So she sees the world in layers, in strata. She talks about Marley Mountain being a fault scarp.
Okay, for those of us who aren't geology buffs, and I'm definitely counting myself among them, what exactly is a fault scarp?
It's basically a step, an offset on the ground surface where one side of a fault has moved vertically. It's a literal rip in the earth.
So, visible evidence of a break.
Visible evidence of violence in the earth's crust. The landscape is buckled, it's broken. And Georgie uses that to frame her own existence. She's living on a fault line. She feels that instability under her feet every single day.
And that geological fault line, it mirrors the historical fault line in her family history.
The partition of India in 1947.
Right. That's the post-colonial part of the title coming in.
It is. And we have to remember the scale of that event. I mean, when the British left India, they didn't just leave. They sliced the country into India and Pakistan.
The narrator describes it so vividly. She says the head of the country was cut off.
It created this massive, massive trauma, displacing millions of people. It was a separation that defined an entire generation.
And her mother, Amma, she grew up in the shadow of that split. There's this detail about the Jana Gana Mana, the Indian national anthem,
Yes.
and how hard it was for such a diverse population to suddenly sing one song. to pretend to have one unified identity when they'd just been ripped apart.
Can you imagine being told, okay, yesterday you were British subjects, today you are Indians, and oh, by the way, your neighbor is now Pakistani? The identity crisis is just built into the DNA of the nation at that point.
And Amma carries that confusion, that split, with her all the way to Wyoming.
She does. And then you have the third split, the personal one. Georgie and Agatha, they're halfies, half Indian, half white American. They don't fit anywhere.
They really don't. It's so clear. The white kids at school want to play cowboys and Indians.
That's not just a game, right? It's a reenactment of local history. They literally asked Georgie to scalp them.
Which is just so bizarre.
It's this weird fetishization of her otherness, and they're conflating Indian from India with Native American. But then, when their Indian relatives visit, the girls don't speak Tamil, they don't know the customs, they're completely split down the middle.
There's a specific moment in the book that I think ties all of this fracturing together perfectly. It's a date that's etched in history. January 28, 1986.
The Challenger explosion.
The Challenger.
Such a pivotal moment for that generation, and McConigley uses it just brilliantly. It anchors the story in time, but it's also this massive visual metaphor.
Georgie's sitting in her school, watching the launch on TV like every other kid in America. I think anyone who was alive then remembers the AV cart being rolled into the classroom.
Oh, absolutely.
And she watches the shuttle just split apart in the sky. For her, it's a sign. The family is splitting. The town is falling apart economically.
And now the sky itself is fracturing. It just reinforces this feeling that the world is unstable, that nothing holds together.
And you have to remember, this is the bust. In 1986 Wyoming, the economy had just cratered.
Completely. The price of oil dropped, and the town died. Banks were failing. Georgie describes neighbors just disappearing in the night.
That detail about them leaving their keys in the mailbox.
Isn't that haunting? Just walking away from their mortgages, there was a sense of abandonment everywhere.
It's like they're saying, we give up. The land won.
Exactly. And that environment, it demands a certain toughness. You can't be soft in a place like Marley. You have to be like the sagebrush. You know, it's dry, it's brittle, but it survives.
The girls realize that pretty quickly.
They do. They realize that if they're soft, they're going to be crushed. The landscape itself is hostile.
Okay, so let's talk about the people living on this fault line. The Creel family. There's such a fascinating mix of contradiction.
They really are.
You've got Amma, Indira, the mother, and she's a total Anglophile.
Which is his own layer of incredible irony, right?
Yeah.
She's Indian, but she's obsessed with the British monarchy. She is essentially in love with the colonizer.
Totally. She went to British schools in Madras. She loves the Queen, loves Lady Diana. She's trying to maintain this proper image in a trailer park town.
She's baking fruitcakes, which nobody in Wyoming wants to eat.
Right, and scrubbing grease stains out of clothes, trying to be this perfect colonial subject right in the middle of the American West.
It's her way of asserting control, I think. If she can keep the house clean, if she can bake the perfect cake, then maybe she isn't really living in a dying oil town.
She's maintaining standards.
It's a performance of class that feels completely out of place in Marley.
And then there's the father, Appa. Richard. He's the white American geologist. But he's barely there.
He's a ghost. He's always out on the rigs. He represents the extraction industry, not just in his job, but in his whole philosophy.
What do you mean?
He's the one who teaches the girls about drilling, about casing a well so it doesn't collapse.
Yeah.
His entire worldview is that it's okay to take what you need from the earth because, well, we need to drive our cars. We need heat.
So he justifies the violence of extraction. He sees it as necessary progress.
He does. And because he's gone so much, he creates this vacuum in the house.
A cower vacuum.
And nature abhors a vacuum.
So into that vacuum comes the invasion. That's what the girls call it.
Yes. The arrival of the relatives from India, Vinny, Uncle, Annie Devi, and their son, Narayan.
Georgie uses a very Wyoming metaphor for their arrival. She compares them to miller moths.
It's such a great image. Anyone who's lived in the high plains knows about Miller season. These moths just swarm the lights. They get into everything. They're dusty and frantic.
It's so gross, but so vivid. You can almost feel the dust on your fingers just hearing it. She says the relatives came like moths, frantic, drawn to the wrong things, and just overwhelming.
It's a sensory invasion. Suddenly the house smells like curry instead of what Amma considers clean American air.
And Agatha and Georgie, they lose their bedroom.
They get pushed into a corner of their own life. They're displaced in their own home, just like the Arapaho were displaced from the land generations before.
Losing their personal space is so critical. They're forced to share a bed. It compresses them physically, which just ramps up all the psychological tension.
Mm-hmm. And the relatives themselves are, well, they're a bit of a disappointment to the girls.
They are. The girls have this exoticized idea of India, I think, or at least an expectation of what family should be.
Right. But Auntie Devi isn't this mystical Indian figure. Georgie calls her a ghost ama. She just watches soap operas and sulks. She refuses to engage. She's depressed, frankly.
And Vinny Uncle, he's the catalyst.
He's the spark.
He's described as foreign returned, which implies this worldly charisma, like he's been out in the world and has come back with all these stories.
But in reality, he's lazy. He's a man who feels entitled to everything. He loves American pop culture, Mötley Crüe, National Geographic. But he introduces a really, really dangerous dynamic. He disrupts the matriarchy that Amma had going.
He splits the sisters.
That's the first thing he does.
First, by favoring the son, Narayan. That introduces this gender hierarchy that the girls hadn't really felt as sharply before. Amma and Appa seem pretty egalitarian, mostly because Akka was never there.
But Vinny Uncle brings the patriarchy right into the living room. He makes it clear that the boy is the prize. But then it gets sinister. It goes beyond favoritism.
He starts taking the girls one by one into the bathroom.
And this is where the story shifts. It goes from a family drama to a full-on psychological horror.
And the way McConigley handles the abuse is fascinating.
She doesn't give us graphic details.
No, she doesn't make it voyeuristic. She just refers to it as it.
It, the shadow. It's too big and too scary to name. So she uses a metaphor. She uses the game of freeze tag to explain the psychological state of the abuse.
I found that so profound. I mean, we all played freeze tags as kids. You get tagged and you have to freeze. You're helpless. You're just standing there waiting for someone to unfreeze you.
Exactly. And Georgie describes the abuse as being it. She is frozen in that bathroom. And the real tragedy is she's waiting for the rules of the game to work.
Right. In the game, a teammate comes and tags you, and you're free.
She's waiting for Amma to save her. She's waiting for Appa to come home from the rigs. She's waiting for anyone to yell safe.
No one comes.
No one comes. And that is the ultimate betrayal. Amma is too worried about appearances. She's stressed about her failed brother, about maintaining the family image in front of the white neighbors. She refuses to see what's happening right under her nose.
And Appa is just gone. He's physically absent, extracting oil hundreds of miles away.
This leads to a massive psychological split in Georgie. She starts talking about the me and the you.
That's classic dissociation, right?
Textbook. To survive trauma, the mind splits. It's a defense mechanism. There's the you that's frozen in the bathroom enduring the abuse, and then there's the me that's floating above watching it happen to someone else.
It's the only way she can get through it.
Right. If it's happening to you, it's not really happening to me.
It's just heartbreaking. She's fragmenting just like the land outside her window. And there's this specific moment where all the hope just dies. Georgie looks at the cottonwood tree in their yard.
The base?
Exactly. In freeze tag, the tree is usually base, or the safe zone. If you can touch the tree, you're safe. It's sanctuary. But she looks at the tree, and she realizes it has canker. It's rotting from the inside out.
And that's the moment of realization. The safe zone is diseased. The home is not safe. The parents are not a safe harbor. The very foundation of their lives is rotting.
So when you realize the referee isn't watching and the base is rotten,
you have to change the rules of the game. You can't wait to be unfrozen. You have to unfreeze yourself.
So they decide to extract the problem. They decide to kill Vinny Uncle. And their weapon of choice is antifreeze, ethylene glycol.
It's the perfect weapon for their context.
Yeah.
It's almost poetic. First of all, it's everywhere. Every garage in Wyoming has a jug of antifreeze because the winters are just brutal. If you don't have it, your engine block cracks.
It's a household staple.
Completely.
Yeah.
But chemically, it's so insidious. It's sweet.
Yeah, the book mentions that cats eat it because it tastes good. And there's that backstory about the neighbor's cat, Tomcat Pops, who died mysteriously under that same cottonwood tree.
That was the prototype, the accidental experiment.
Yeah.
Amma figured out the cat died from antifreeze. And the girls, they just filed that information away. They saw how effective it was.
Because it's odorless, it's sweet, it's syrupy.
And the symptoms mimic being drunk or having the flu. Vomiting, confusion, lethargy.
Which is perfect camouflage, because Vinny Uncle is a heavy drinker.
Exactly. He smokes, he drinks. If he starts acting sick and stumbling around, everyone just assumes he's hungover or he caught a bug. No one's going to suspect a thing.
The timeline of the poisoning is just chilling. It starts in July. Georgie has this line that just stuck with me. We were done gathering, I was ready to hunt.
That shift from gatherer to hunter is so powerful. It's a total rejection of the passive female role.
What do you mean by that?
Well, historically, in the hunter-gatherer dynamic, women are the gatherers. They're the ones who wait, who collect. Men hunt. And Georgie says, no, I am done gathering. I'm done waiting to be saved. I am going to hunt.
And look at how they do it. It's not just impulsive, it's scientific.
It is. It's trial and error. They're mixing antifreeze with Mountain Dew and pineapple soda. They're experimenting with dosages.
Can we just pause on the mixers for a second? Mountain Dew and pineapple soda.
Talk about the irony. It's the ultimate 80s American junk food.
It is. It's American pop culture literally masking the poison. They're sweetening the kill with the products of their assimilation. They're using the yellow #5 dye and the high fructose corn syrup to hide this lethal chemical.
And Agatha Krishna, she transforms during this. She becomes the alchemist. She's the one measuring, commanding. Georgie becomes the accomplice, the witness.
It really feels like they're adopting a pioneer mindset.
They absolutely are. Alma likes to call them pioneers for coming to America. She uses it as a compliment, brave, forging a new path. But Georgie completely reinterprets that.
What does a pioneer actually do?
A pioneer is a colonizer. They enter a territory, they take what they need to survive, and they remove the indigenous or savage threats.
That's a dark way to look at Little House on the Prairie, but he's not wrong.
And in the girls' minds, Vinnie Uncle is the threat. He's the savage element that's invaded their territory. To make their home safe, they have to settle it. They have to remove him. They are enacting the violence of the frontier right there in their kitchen.
That is the postcolonial murder, using a quintessential American chemical automotive antifreeze to remove an old world problem.
And the whole justification process is fascinating. They blame everything else first. They blame the British for colonizing India and making their family weird. They blame the cold Wyoming winter for making them hard.
They blame Reaganomics.
They blame everything. They act like this murder is just another form of extraction. Unfortunate, maybe, but necessary for survival. Just like drilling for oil.
Yeah.
It's dirty, but you need the energy.
I want to pivot for a second to how this story is told because the structure is so unique. We mentioned the you narration, but then there are these quizzes. They look like something straight out of 17 or YM magazine.
It's a brilliant juxtaposition. If you grew up in that era, you know the aesthetic instantly. The bubbly fonts, the pink borders, the little check boxes.
Quizzes like, how do you know if a boy likes you? Or what's your summer style? It represents this innocence, this frivolity, the concerns of a normal teenager.
But then you get a quiz in the book called, Do You Have What It Takes to Kill?
It's so jarring. It forces you to engage with this horrific trauma through a candy-colored lens.
It shows how their innocence has been completely corrupted.
Yeah.
They're trying to process murder using the only tools they have, which is pop culture. They're trying to fit this monstrosity into the format of a slumber party game.
And then there's the MH game.
Oh, MH. Mansion, apartment, shack, house.
We all played that to predict our future, right? You spiral the pencil until someone says stop, and you count it off.
Who you'll marry, what car you'll drive, how many kids you'll have. It's a game of hope. It's all about the future.
But for Georgie and Agatha, MH isn't a fun game about the future. It just highlights how trapped they feel.
Precisely. They're sitting there playing this game about predicting a future when they don't even know if they're going to survive the present. It just contrasts the childhood fantasy of tomorrow with the grim reality that they have to kill their uncle just to have a tomorrow.
If they don't do this, there is no mansion or apartment. There's just the shack of abuse. The book also dives really deep into identity through this incredibly clever metaphor, caste versus caste.
Ah, yes. The chapter Caste in the American West. This is one of the intellectual peaks in the book, I think. Georgie compares caste, the rigid social hierarchy of India, with caste, as in fly fishing.
Because there's a scene where Vinnie, Uncle, and Appa go fishing.
Right, and the way they fish tells you everything you need to know about their place in the world. Vinnie uses worm fishing. He puts corn or a worm on a hook. It's cheap, it's effective, but it's considered low class by the purists.
It's dirty, you get your hands messy.
Then you have fly fishing. That requires expensive equipment, a specific technique, the right stance.
It's an art form.
It is. It represents the high caste, the white, wealthy American ideal. You stand in the river, you whip the line, you don't really touch the fish until you catch it. It's clean, it's graceful.
And Georgie sees society as this river where you have to have the right footing to not slip.
Exactly. She equates the fly fisherman, to the Brahmins, the highest caste in India, and she places herself and Agatha in the middle, or really at the bottom. They're using the low caste techniques, the worm, the antifreeze.
Why? Because they don't have the social standing to use the proper channels.
They can't just call the police?
They feel they can't.
Right. If they tell, they destroy the family. They shame Amma. They send the relatives back to poverty in India. The system, the fly-fishing method of justice, it isn't built for them. So they use the worm. They use the dirty method because it works. It's a pragmatic, desperate choice.
Being a halfie in Wyoming means they're constantly code switching. They have to change their caste depending on who they're with.
Constantly. Amma speaks with a British accent but lives in a trailer park town. The girls pray to Christian saints, but they know Hindu myths. Georgie even mentions her great-grandfather, Thomas, who is obsessed with Esperanto.
Esperanto. I love that detail. The universal language that was supposed to unite the world.
It was this utopian dream, right? A language that belongs to everyone and no one. But it failed. And that failure mirrors the girls' experience perfectly. There is no universal language for their life.
They're too brown for the white kids.
Who make them play the Indian and get shot in playground games.
But they're too white for their relatives.
They don't speak Tamil. They're completely stranded between languages.
So they create their own?
They do. They create a secret language. They have words like Kiledi and Yuckaduck. It's a language of survival, just for the two of them. It defines their own little nation of two.
Which makes the breakdown of their relationship later even more tragic. But first, we have to get to the climax. August 14th.
One day before India's Independence Day. And that date is not an accident. McConigley is so precise with these details.
India got its independence on August 15th. The girls take theirs on August 14th. So Vinny's uncle dies. But unlike a typical murder mystery, there's no shootout. No sirens, no detective kicking down the door. It's bitch quiet.
It's terrifyingly quiet. And that's the reality of a brown death in this town. Vinny's uncle dies in his bed. Auntie Debbie refuses an autopsy. There's a simple obituary in the paper. The town barely blinks.
But the book contrasts this so sharply with the death of a white woman, Lilith Jones, who dies the same week.
Yes.
She gets hit by a car while she's looking at an antelope.
And the town loses its mind over Lilith Jones. It is a public tragedy. The news covers it. The driver who hit her is devastated. People are crying in the grocery store.
And it just highlights the total invisibility of the Ayyar family. A white stranger looks at an antelope and dies, and it's a calamity. An Indian man dies at home after weeks of obvious illness, vomiting, stumbling, and nobody asks a single question.
It completely validates their calculation. They realized they were invisible, and they used that invisibility to commit murder.
Invisibility as a weapon.
It's a superpower if you're a predator or if you're hunting one.
But then comes the twist. The blue bottle. This part actually made me gasp when I read it.
It changes the entire narrative, doesn't it?
Completely. So after the funeral, Georgie is looking through Auntie Debbie's suitcase. She finds a bottle of antifreeze. But it's blue.
And the girls used a yellow bottle.
Right. They were using Prestone or whatever brand comes in that bright yellow jug. Auntie Debbie had a blue bottle.
So what does that mean?
It means Auntie Debbie knew.
Not only did she know, she was likely participating. Remember, Auntie Debbie's a scientist. Back in India, she wasn't just a housewife. She has a degree.
I forgot about that detail.
She has been playing the role of the simple, sulking, soap opera-watching guest this whole time. But in that suitcase, Georgie finds notes with chemical calculations. She was calculating the lethal dose of ethylene glycol based on body weight.
That reframes everything. The girls thought they were these lone wolves, these pioneers protecting the settlement. They thought they were all alone in the freezing cold.
But the mother figure, or the aunt figure, was actually right there with them the whole time. The ghost in the machine.
It's a silent pact.
It is. Agatha Krishna takes the blue bottle and throws it away. But they leave a scrap of the notes on the dresser. They want Auntie Davy to know that they know.
But they never speak of it.
Not a word.
Yeah.
It's this acknowledgement of shared guilt, but also of shared survival. It's like, we're all in this extraction business together.
Exactly. But you would think this shared secret would bond the sisters for life. You'd think they would be inseparable after this.
You would think so. But it does the opposite.
Why?
Trauma is messy. It doesn't always bring people together. A lot of times it repels them.
Yeah.
If I look at you and all I see is the murder we committed, I don't want to look at you anymore.
The murder drives a wedge between Georgie and Agatha.
It does. Agatha changes completely. She gets a waterbed.
Which Georgie notes is unstable. You move, and the whole bed waves.
It's a perfect symbol of her isolation and instability, and she throws herself into cheerleading.
Which is so high school. So normal on the surface.
It is, but look at the chant. Be aggressive. Be you're aggressive. That becomes her mantra. She's trying to shout down the guilt. She's trying to channel that violence into something socially acceptable, high school sports.
And poor Georgie is left with the ghosts. She sees Bloody Mary in the mirror. She becomes obsessed with the Phantom of the Opera.
The phantom motif is perfect for her. The phantom is this disfigured man living under the surface, creating music, but hiding his face. That's how Georgie feels morally.
She feels disfigured.
Like a monster living in the basement of the world.
And there's the tragedy of the cousin, Narayan, Vinny Uncle's son. He is completely innocent in all of this.
He is the collateral damage. He grieves for his father, totally unaware that his cousins and his own mother killed him. That guilt just eats at Georgie. Every time she sees him, she sees what she took from him.
The story kind of wraps up with this myth that Amma tells, the flowering tree.
It's a beautiful, sad story from Indian folklore. It's about a woman who has a special gift. She can turn herself into a flowering tree.
Sounds lovely.
It sounds lovely, but her family uses this. They make her turn into a tree so they can pick the flowers and sell them. She's being harvested.
It's a story about commodification.
It's about women being used for their beauty, for their utility, until they are just broken branches. In the myth, she's eventually mistreated. Someone breaks a branch while she's a tree, and when she turns back into a woman, she's maimed for life.
And the sisters' refusal to be the broken tree is what led them to murder in the first place.
Yes. They saw that Vinny Uncle was going to break them. He's going to harvest them. So they refused. But the tragedy is, in saving themselves from being broken by the uncle, they broke their own bond. They broke their childhood.
So when we step back from it all, what does postcolonial murder actually mean here? Is it just a catchy, provocative title?
No, I think it's a thesis statement. It means that the murder was a reaction to occupation. Vinny Uncle occupied their house, he occupied their bodies, he colonized their safe space.
And the murder was an act of decolonization.
Exactly. It was violent, it was messy, it was illegal, but it was a reclamation of territory. They took their land back.
And what about Auntie Devi? She survives.
She thrives, in a way. She goes from being the silent ghost to a woman who buys new lingerie. She starts taking care of herself. She eventually returns to India on her own terms without the husband who weighed her down.
She manages to have a good life in spite of.
That phrase sticks with you, doesn't it? The good life in spite of.
It's powerful.
It really challenges the idea that trauma has to define you forever. We often think that if something bad happens to you, you're ruined. You are the broken tree forever.
But Auntie Devi shows that you can have a good life in spite of what happened.
Or, as another character says later in the book, you can have a bad life because of it. It's a choice. You can let the extraction leave you empty, or you can find a way to fill the hole.
And that leads to the final, really provocative thought the book leaves us with. Georgie challenges the listener. She challenges the you. She asks if we prefer the story where the brown girl is the victim.
It's a direct confrontation. She breaks the fourth wall.
She basically asks, are you disappointed that I'm not crying? Are you disappointed that I killed him?
She's asking, do we only empathize when the other is suffering? Or can we accept them when they are aggressive, when they take justice into their own hands?
It forces you to look at your own complicity in consuming trauma narratives.
It does. We like the crying victim. We want to save them. We feel good about pitying them. We are much, much less comfortable with the teenage girl holding the jug of antifreeze.
She doesn't want our kitty.
She wants us to know she survived.
It really makes you question your own shadow self. What would you do if you were frozen? Would you stay frozen? Or would you start hunting?
That is the question. And I think Georgie gave us her answer. She chose the hunt.
She certainly did. Wow, well, that is a lot to process. Thank you for helping us unpack this incredible, dark, and surprisingly funny book.
My pleasure. It is a story that really stays with you. It sticks like the oil in the ground.
And for you listening, next time you look at a bottle of blue or yellow liquid in your garage, maybe just remember everything can be a tool for extraction if you're desperate enough. Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.